A very good morning to everyone. My name is Andile Magadla, Project Manager for Enterprise Development within the city. So I run this program with my colleagues from Commerce Edge. And today we are witnessing the grand finale of the Supplier matchup, which we're also having an online presence for the conference part of this session for today. However, ladies and gentlemen, before I go any further, I'd like to welcome the Mayoral Economic Member for Economic Growth, Alderman James Voss, who's going to give us a keynote and then welcome everyone. Thank you. Alderman, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. All right, good morning, and thank you all for being here today. So I'm very mindful that we have an online audience of about 100 and plus. So I'm going to keep to the script and stay on message. So I'm very excited to speak to you all here this morning at this Smart Supply Procurement Matchup session focused on government, ICT, financial, and the real estate sectors. And so as the Mayoral Committee Member for Economic Growth, my job with my team is to develop and implement strategies to drive economic growth and job creation in Cape Town. So our mission is very clear. It is to grow Cape Town's economy by creating the right conditions where businesses can succeed. Now, why do we do this? Because we believe in Cape Town's potential and its people. Our goal is to build a resilient and an inclusive economy that benefits everyone. Personally, I imagine a Cape Town where every entrepreneur, no matter big or small, has the chance to succeed and also to contribute to this vibrant city. And so for me, it's about our incredible products, our wonderful people, and also our amazing places. I like to talk about the triple P, where these people, places, and products really represent what Cape Town has to offer to the world. Your products and your services. And it's also what makes Cape Town so alive with possibilities. And so how do we do it? Through targeted initiatives like our Ease of Doing Business Index, where we have 10 business-facing indicators from business licenses, building plan approvals, electricity connections, construction permits, so that we can reduce the number of days it takes to get those processes and applications through the system, ultimately doing it faster and with business sense. Also, our partnership with Productivity SA, where this program enhances performances, but more importantly, profits, and also reduced costs, so that we can support small businesses with their operations to drive productivity, because if your businesses produce more, you employ more. And therefore, we have a Productivity SA partnership to support small businesses in Cape Town when it comes to the productivity of your business. We also have this very exciting Smart Supply Procurement Matchup program, where we want to link businesses and services with suppliers in the ecosystem, so that ultimately, that's the online, there we go. That's the, was I on screen or off screen? Okay. And this is also where we can match up your services and products with more suppliers in the ecosystem, so that it makes business sense. And so we really want to create an ecosystem that will drive more opportunity, because you have the products, you have the services that can really put Cape Town on the map. But beyond putting Cape Town on the map, it's also about growing your business so that you can ultimately reach more profitability and get more products to market faster and more efficient. And this is why smart procurement and supply development really underpins the success of Cape Town's economy. And make no mistake, it's going to be filled with trials and tribulations. We're not going to get it right all the time. But as long as we keep on trying to get to those markets, to get to those clients, and to get to those suppliers. And this is why these programs are all there to support Cape Town's small business ecosystem, because it's tough. Conditions are difficult. The rising cost of doing business externally, that impacts your bottom line in terms of what you are able to do as a business, and that is to succeed. And so we really want to see how we can remove those barriers and make it easier. And that's why the Economic Development and Investment Department in the City of Cape Town is so obsessed with the journey of small businesses. In fact, this branch is called the Enterprise Development Branch because we're constantly seeking opportunities and possibilities for small businesses to connect with big suppliers and with guys who procure your services at scale. And so it's all about that business hub service offering. And so that's why the team that you'll see here today is part of our business hub initiative. And so the business hub is like a one-stop shop, giving business support, driving growth, removing obstacles. And that's also a big part of my job, is to see how the city government's policies and programs can become an enabler. And that's why we came up with a business index. And this business index was developed previously by the World Bank, where they measure the performances of cities when it comes to the ease of doing business. And so we've realized as a city government that we have a lot of work to do to change our policies, to adapt our business to make it much more business friendlier, from the informal trader right through to the big company setting up shop here in Cape Town. Those building plan approvals, those business licenses, the things that you need to get on with doing business, and how can we make it easier? And that's why part of the ease of doing business index was the removal of about 500 obstacles in the system since we've introduced it 1 year ago. So there are about 500 policy improvements that we've made in the last year internally, from way leave applications, from the submission electronically, so that you don't need to go into an office and see someone, but that you can do it online. So those are small measures. But as you know, the saying goes, it's those small things that determine the big things. And that's why those 500 plus policy improvements over the last 12 months come at a cost, because we had to go internally, figure out what is it that we are doing that's standing in the way of business, making it easier, simpler, very much like a bank, because you hear a lot of these banking institutions out there talking constantly about what are we doing for our clients to make it simpler, faster, easier. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to professionalize and modernize our business offering to you. And so therefore, ladies and gentlemen, your presence here today is also a testament to our shared commitment to economic growth. A city government cannot do it alone. In fact, no government can do it alone. We need the help of private sector. And those 3 Ps, people, places, and products, are so unique in our value proposition, from corner to corner, from community to community, our cultures, our colors, our cuisines, the things that we do here in Cape Town, puts us on the world map. And that's why your products and services make me extremely proud, because it gives us something to go and trade with. And that's why that access to market is an obsession of mine, because how do we get your product to market? And that's why we've also come up with a Cape Trade Portal. You'll find more details on the website, www.capetradeportal.com, where you can load your services and your products onto the platform, and we will connect you with buyers locally and globally. Because as part of our enterprise development journey is access to market. This is just one step of that journey. And that access to market in terms of the Cape Trade Portal is making it easier for you to trade, so that we can connect you through our platform and through our market intelligence with buyers locally and globally who can consume and ultimately buy your products and services. So please make use of the Cape Trade Portal. It's just another measure of this city government and our partners to make life easier for Cape Town-based businesses. And so I just want to say quickly something about this Smart Supply program, why this is so important for us as a city and part of our economic growth objective. Because by ensuring that the right suppliers are matched with the right opportunities, we can promote efficiency, because that's good on the profit line. Innovation, because it cannot be business as usual. We have to adapt. We have to continuously think about doing business differently. And also, ladies and gentlemen, competitiveness, because it's very competing out there. Everybody wants a part of that market share. Everybody wants to get their business in and take a gap and be ahead of the curve. And that's why competitiveness also drives efficiency and innovation. And that's why we are so pleased with this program's outcome so far, having you here today and the many people online and who have participated before you and who will come after you, because this is where it all begins and basically is a means to an end. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is also not only to benefit suppliers, but also, again, to enhance that ecosystem. And you'll continuously hear the team talk about that ecosystem, because we can't do it alone. That's why the 3 Ps also translates into a public-private partnership. Because I've done some research on this program, and you know, it's not often that municipalities conduct these type of sessions, because municipalities are seen as service delivery organizations. We have to go out there, fix roads, build bridges, and do things in communities, but we forget that those things cannot happen without a small business ecosystem that becomes the providers of goods and services. So again, by connecting suppliers with industry leaders, we are then creating together that network that can lead to new opportunities and partnerships. Thank you so much to our partners, the Smart Supplier colleagues that's been with us on this journey, my team in the department, and for you being part of the Cape Town economic growth journey. Let's continue to work together to create a more prosperous Cape Town for all. It now gives me pleasure to hand over to Debbie, who is the COO, who will be speaking to you now. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Alderman. We really appreciate the partnership. We just thinking, I was trying to do the numbers quickly with the team, to think that it was a conversation with your team almost 12 years ago, alongside what Smart Procurement does around market access, and to see where this journey has grown to. And it can only be done with such passion and all those elements that you spoke about. It is really truly encouraging as an organization to offer market access to businesses where we are working with those on the ground that don't just talk about it, they do it. So I think we are in our 12th year of this program. And what's been amazing is that the program has continued to change depending on what was going on. We've been through COVID together. Look at, I was just wowing with the team now and thinking, you've got an amazing audience sitting there in Cape Town, but online, I think we're almost 200 people online here as well, that no matter what your circumstance is, we're flexible, and the objective is to help businesses gain market access, gain innovation, and gain perspective. And I'm really, really excited about the panel discussion that's been put together. And I think it's come out of a lot of what we see. So you'll see now with our panelists who come from all walks within the space of supply development, whether they are in procurement themselves or whether they are entrepreneurs themselves or supporting entrepreneurs. But one of the things that we hope to change your mindset this morning in the audience that's online and that is sitting in the room is, we've called it Jack of all trades, master of none. And often we see that, you know, we're so, as businesses and entrepreneurs, we want to go after every opportunity, but is that actually the right opportunity that you're going after? And I'm really personally looking forward to this panel, because I think if we can start to help and guide local businesses, we can start to find those niche and opportunities. And don't forget, to our entrepreneurs that are joining us today, that sitting next to you in the room, in the city where you are now, or online, don't forget that you can do business with each other. It doesn't just have to be about corporate. And definitely the purpose of this program is not to look at the city of Cape Town as your only opportunity or business. There is so many other organizations sitting within the region. And remember, by virtue of being part of Smart Procurement and the Smart Supply program, is that we actually open the door to you to anyone nationally. And even most of you have joined us online for our Africa focus as well. So do not think the world is only this small. Hopefully we've opened it up for you to much bigger things. So also to those that have been on the program, I've just seen all the chats, which has been phenomenal, going, yeah, we've made it. And as you know, this program is a partnership. We hate the word beneficiaries. You'll see we don't even use that. What we do is about, this is an opportunity, and working together, we can take you really, really far. And to those that have succeeded to this point, please keep sharing your stories with us. That's what keeps our team going. I do want to just shout out to Paulina and Nasha, who have headed up this program from start to finish, with partner and commercial head Keshni. Keshni and myself have been on this program probably for 12 years now together, but especially to our implementation team, and most of you have gotten to know them one-on-one. And it's only with that kind of passion that we can deliver. So not about us this morning, it's about you, and it's about this amazing panel that will be moderated by Anton Riesel. Anton, lovely to see you. I'm sorry that I'm not in Cape Town, although I think I'm drier here in Joburg. And many of you will know Anton from the role that he plays with Fatola. I also see that he's got a role with ARC Consulting. But if there's anyone better to navigate this panel, please, I'm going to hand over to you. And if I can ask our audience online, make sure you're asking in the chat. And if anyone asks me again, yes, we're recording, and yes, we will share. So over to you, and a big, big congratulations to those who have participated in the 12th version of this competition, and keep on succeeding and just keep doing what you do.
Thanks, Debbie. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up. Feel free to put your cameras on. It's always nice for us to be able to see you online here. So as Debbie mentioned, my name's Anton Riesel. I am the strategic head at Fatola, which is an enterprise development company, and also director of ARC Consulting, and a mentor and a consultant in this sort of business development space. I'm really excited to be here. I'm honored to have been asked to moderate this panel. We've got an amazing sort of agenda planned for you. We've got 6 very dynamic speakers from different areas of business, from the procurement side, as Debbie said, to entrepreneurs, to people providing strategic support services into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we've got a really nice, diverse panel, and we're going to have an interesting debate and some conversations. The title, as Debbie mentioned, of this conversation is Jack of all trades, master of none. And I'd like to think it's with a question mark, not a statement, because we're actually going to unpack the pros and cons of diversification versus specialization with our panelists. It's not a one size fits all. And I think as the conversation progresses, we're going to see that there is indeed a bit of complexity, and in some instances, the one strategy will outweigh the other. Thinking back just to COVID a few short years ago, those of us that diversified and weren't necessarily focused on one specific, very linear business model were the ones who generally were able to sort of ride the tide a little bit more effectively, because we had other options. You know, think of our poor colleagues in the tourism industry, for example, which just shut down like a clam in COVID, whereas, you know, certain online, the work that I do as a mentor and coach, I was able to continue because I was working online. So there is an argument for diversification. But then the other side of the coin says, you know, we always hear this concept of 10,000 hours to master a skill. And it's quite broadly applied in things like sporting, in sports, and becoming a real master at a particular sport, in cultural pursuits, perhaps music. You know, as a musician or an artist, they talk about 10,000 hours in repetition and just real focus and doing something over and over again to master it. And we don't really talk about that much in business. You know, we have a lot of narrative out there around hustle culture. You know, what's your side hustle? What's your hustle? And personally, not a huge fan of hustle because it does detract from the ability to focus. If you've got too many irons in the fire, it's difficult to know which ones to focus on. And maybe I'll start off by just quickly introducing my panel, and then I'm going to ask them some questions and we're going to unpack some of these concepts a little bit further. So I've got, and maybe you guys can just wave when I mention your name. We do see your name, but for those that are in the audience, it might be easier if you just give us a wave. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Clausen, who's the founder and owner of Ngapaya Y2K10 Trading CC. It's quite a mouthful. I know Jenny well. We used to work together. She's a wonderful and dynamic entrepreneur and a real example of resilience and making the right choices to grow her business. So we're going to chat a little bit about her journey. We've also got Peliswa Mguni, who's the Executive Manager, Region 2 in Cape Town for Productivity SA. Thank you, Peliswa, for joining us. We look forward to chatting. We've got Halid Smith, who's an SME and the founder of Greenhouse Business Development. They provide a lot of business development and support services, special focus on external monitoring and evaluation. Thanks, Halid, for joining us. We've got Noluthando Nandu, who's the head of general claims and procurement at Bright SA. Don't you love her glasses? They're one of South Africa's largest business insurers, and she's going to share some insights around her sort of perceptions and focus versus diversification, particularly with a regulatory and compliance lens. Then we've got Bernadette Duddy, who's the founder and CEO of Reality Learning SA. And they're a training and HR consulting company, and they've got a niche focus on occupational health and safety training and compliance. So a great person to talk to about focus and about specialization. And then last but not least, we've got Santi Roy, who's the Director for Local Government Supply Chain Management in the Western Cape Government and Provincial Treasury. So I hope I got everyone's titles and names right. And without further ado, I'm going to pose a question to Jenny. Jenny, when we started out and when I was working with you many years ago, you had quite a diverse focus. You were bringing in a lot of product from overseas, you were procuring product locally, and you were doing quite a lot of different things in terms of supply. Over the years, maybe over the last decade even, you've narrowed and refined your focus. How has that contributed to your growth? And can you maybe just tell us a little bit about that journey?
Morning, everybody. Morning. Anton, thanks for that intro. I'm humbled. And I also just want to say morning to all the business owners. We might be SMMEs, but we're business owners. So thank you. I think I'll summarize it in 3 points. One is the customer. We became customer focused on the customer needs, not what we had to offer. The second thing is we kept abreast of everything, the economy, legislation, and through that we saw gap in the market. Okay. And my third thing is we then focused our energies on developing into the market where we're right now. So the market we're operating in right now within government is the healthcare industry. Never did I think I will do that. But by focusing, we've moved our contribution from 10% within healthcare, so between sourcing and developing products and supplying them, to 60% of our sales. But with that, like anything else, comes pain, but also linked to that, we're all about compliance. So we invested a lot of money into securing our SAPRA license. And we're on the verge of having our ISO certificate, our medical ISO certificate. So I think it is a combination. And at the end of the day, it's what the customer needs, not what you have to offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. That's a great answer. And just maybe I'll sort of add a little caveat to the question. In the early days of your business, when you were still trying to find your feet and you were kind of maybe being all things to everyone, what were some of the challenges that you encountered as a result when there was significant diversification and different customers and different target markets and so on?
Oh my word, Anton. I actually kept two things from my past, from my growth. Is when you're all over the show and you wanted to give the customer what they want, there are times when you have to invest in stock and you believe it's going to go and work. I'm still sitting with stock and I specifically kept it because it's a reminder of how not to go wide and to rather focus, because it's pain, it's money, it costs you money, it costs you space, it's all of those things that impacts on, yeah. So I have this, it's a plastic bag that I supplied the city, and I had to buy the minimum quantity, which was, I think, like 100 boxes of 1,000 rolls. And the city only took it once, not ever again. So I have lots of plastic bags if anybody wants.
Thanks. I was about to say, if there's anyone in the audience who needs plastic bags, I only take 10% commission. Thanks, Jenny. I'm gonna jump to Peliswa now, and Peliswa, as the sort of executive manager for Productivity SA, obviously efficiency and productivity and streamlining of operations is a big focus of Productivity SA. You know, for those that aren't familiar with them, they're an amazing organization looking to help South Africa be more competitive and more productive as a whole, as an economy. So my question for you would be, maintaining high quality and consistency in a particular skill or service, you know, and really focusing on that, looking at process engineering, looking at improving efficiencies, improving outputs and productivity, you know, as a whole, how does that contribute to general operational efficiency in a business, but also importantly in terms of building trust with your customer base and streamlining operations so that you can grow?
Thank you, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very much. May I start by acknowledging our esteemed guests, our business owners. Thank you for the opportunity. Perhaps please allow me, Chairperson, to briefly define productivity as we understand it. We understand productivity first and foremost as a ratio of output against input. And it is always assumed that those outputs, whether it's services or products, are defined by high quality, delivered on time in full, and they are also delivered in a manner that is competitive from a cost perspective. Indeed, if you manage your quality and your delivery times, you will find that your cost competitiveness will also be where it's supposed to be. And again, I was listening to what my colleague, Ms. Jenny Klassen, was saying around clarity on who your customer is and their expectations. That is always an assumption that is left perhaps sometimes unchecked. It is extremely important that we are clear on who is the customer, when do they need the product, where must it be delivered, what are the specifications in terms of quality, on time in full delivery expectations, but also fundamentally, you know, whether or not the customer can afford it. What then allows for these key deliverables to be met is clarity on the process that delivers, Chairperson, that value. Do you as a business, for example, have documented processes? If the answer is no, there is a problem already. So I'm already giving homework. Those processes must be delivered, must be run, documented, and everybody who works in the business must actually follow those same processes, procedures on a daily basis, come rain or sunshine, because that process will ensure that value in terms of quality, on time and full delivery will be achieved always, regardless of who's running the process. Especially because as business owners, you also find yourselves attending these type of workshops where you are not in the business.
today to the right of your screen, former Minister of Sports, Arts.
Sorry, we've got
and
some
Culture that we-
someone's mic on there. Okay, thank you.
So documented processes that are up to date, regularly updated as needs of the clients obviously change. What we also understand is that as your quality.
Sorry, if you can all just keep your mics muted, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Lisa, go ahead. You're on mute there.
Thank you. What we also understand as one of the key principles, so clarity on the customer expectations, definition of processes, following those processes, reviewing those processes. And as you start delivering value, naturally there will be deviations, Chairperson. And at which point we then introduce what is called structured problem solving. Assuming that you've got clear goals on your dashboard as a business that define quality expectations, define on time in full delivery expectations, cost competitiveness, value, and all of those critical things. There will always be a gap between the expected and the actual. And those need to be understood. Some form of root cause analysis needs to be engaged on. And we do help businesses with structured problem solving approaches that arrive at the real root cause of the problem. Example, if you are currently solving the same problem today that you experienced last year or a few months ago, chances are you have not reached the root cause of that problem. And it might be time for us to engage so that we can resolve that problem at the root. As I wrap up, Chair, very fundamental as well is the issue of people development. Yes, a lot of these things that I've just mentioned, customer effectiveness, clarity on flow and removing wastage, and also structured problem solving. The assumption is that your people, your employees are also taken along with you as the business owner, because you cannot really run a business alone. What we always advise within organizations is ensure as a business owner that your people walk with you on this path. And as you improve your quality, as you improve your delivery on time in full, as you clarify your processes, as you drill deep into the root causes of your problems, you will find that, Chairperson, you'll be moving towards building stability within your business, stability that delivers value, stability in terms of responsiveness, stability in terms of building trust, in terms of your customers. And in fact, the program that my esteemed keynote speaker, Mr. Foss, spoke to, these are all packages or items within the performance enhancement program that he alluded to, that we have assisted quite a number of business through that are in Cape Town. And of course, if you are interested as a business owner sitting around the table today, you are more than welcome to visit us or talk to us. We will share our contact details so that these benefits and more can also be seen and experienced by your business. But of course, it is a labor of love. It does not happen overnight, but it's certainly something that has been seen in various businesses where they've improved quality, they've improved service delivery by focusing on their processes, clarity, alignment, solving problems in a structured way, and of course, documenting these on their respective dashboards so that everybody agrees that, in fact, the company is moving in a certain direction. Chair, thank you very much.
Thanks, Belisa. Great answer. I think we all got some value from that. And for those of you that struggle in this area, listen, let's be honest, systems and processes are not the most exciting thing to most of us entrepreneurs. They're usually something that we implement after the fact when we're deep in trouble. So reach out to Belisa, reach out to Productivity SA and see how they can help you streamline, improve efficiencies. And I suppose it's also at the end of the day about economies of scale. You know, when you replicate things, when you do them the same way all the time, you start to master them and therefore they become cheaper to actually deliver on. I know that with the company that I started way back in 2000, giving my age away now, probably that was before some people in the audience were born. We were a wire art business, and our motto initially was anything you can dream up in wire, we will build. It was a company called Streetwires. It became quite successful. And that was our sort of opening line. Anything you can dream up in wire, we will build. And it became such a nightmare because we had people coming and going, oh, you know, can you make me one picture frame for my son's bar mitzvah? And the reality was, no, we can't, because there's no focus. So gradually over time, the motto became, you will buy what we make. And this narrowing of focus really sort of unlocked the value in the business, understanding who our target customer was, who our ideal customer was, and the best way to service them in the most efficient manner. So thank you, Polisva. All about efficiencies, all about systems and processes, the building blocks of growth for any business. I'm going to jump to Khaled now, and Khaled is, as I mentioned earlier, the founder of Greenhouse Business Development. They do a lot of business development, support services, a lot of strategy work, and that's why I'm going to pose a question to Khaled around strategy. And Khaled, in your experience, how can having a very focused and clear growth strategy, understanding where you are and where you want to get to, and what you need to do and put in place in order to get there, how does that help a business in terms of measured growth, in terms of not running before you can walk, essentially?
Yeah. So look, as a small business, working with a lot of business owners, I think when you're starting, the key thing is that you need to figure out what you're really, really good at. And that's why I would say maybe having some diversification in the in the onset is good, because it's almost like you're fishing. You don't know what type of fish there is, and you're just trying to survive and get an income as a small business owner. So I would say yes, you should throw your rods and put your rods in and see really what is out there, and that's good, and try and figure out what you're really, really good at. And then start focusing immediately after that. I mean, we do a lot of work, for the city. We've been running how to do business with the city for the last 3 years. And the key thing, the city also wants professional businesses. They want to work with specialist corporates as well, want to work with professional companies. And even when the city is procuring, for example, if you're in the business sector, in the construction industry, and they have a specific job which is out, and it's in, let's say, safety or fire prevention, they want to work with a specialist. So they don't want a general registered, maybe with CIBD in general construction. They want to work with a specialist that specialize in steelwork or in specific industries, and the budgets are also more. So their budgets are more because they want a specialist. So I would say yes, as you grow and develop, specialize, focus on a specific area, especially some hopefully things that you're good at, and learn also how to say no, because a lot of opportunities comes when you're growing, and you tend to go where the money is, because and it just you get distracted. So try and have a plan, have a focus, and say learn to say no now and then. Yeah, thanks.
That's the most difficult thing for an entrepreneur, isn't it? Especially when we starting out and we're still quite new, and saying no thanks, no,
yes,
I don't want your order, it's
difficult.
fine.
Just give it to me. We're not the specialists, and it reminds me of a story. We were working, our company is called Greenhouse, so we were doing, this was many years ago, we were working for the city, and because it's really about creating an environment for growth and that perfect environment. And we got a call from the city, and they said, what, we're looking for trees, and I want you to say, we're actually not in horticulture. And then my cousin, she works for a company that actually grows trees, and I never realized it. Like an actual grown tree is like 60,000. And I immediately phoned back and I said, what? We actually the tree specialists, what do you need?
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely diversify. Thanks, Anton.
Thanks very much, Khaled. Lovely response there. I'm going to kind of extend this question a little bit to Noluthando as well, because we were chatting the other day when we met as a panel and just discussed some of the questions and so on around sort of diversification and when it can serve one, as a strategy, as a business strategy. There are certainly a lot of instances, you know, what Khaled mentioned there about, you know, the fishing analogy, and I'm a fisherman, so I really enjoyed that analogy. Thanks, Khaled. But, you know, about finding what you're good at, finding your groove, and it's not necessarily something that's immediately obvious as an emerging entrepreneur just starting out. You know, you still maybe figuring out where your niche is and where your passion lies. So Nolithanda, we were chatting a little bit about the journey of Bright SA, who are a you know, very big player in the business insurance space. And my question to her was, you know, how does one actually balance specialization and diversification? And maybe Nolithanda, you can just share a little bit about your experiences.
Sure, no problem. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Anton. So I'm not a fisherman, so I'll try. I like stories like Khaled. I'll try and find a sort of a cleaner, probably smaller way of trying to create context for our business partners. So as a business insurer, I mean, you wouldn't associate necessarily what insurance looks like in 2024 to what currently, I mean, similar to what entrepreneurs go through every day. But our, you know, bulk, of our business is actually insuring businesses, and our core function is to provide the insurance, obviously, for your motor, which is vehicles or property. However, like any other business, you need to compete. You need to also make sure that your product firstly diversifies, but at the same time, you are able to still provide your core products to your clients. And finding your niche in this particular market. We are one of 8 large insurers in South Africa. And that creates a lot of excitement in the business when you're trying to find that area of specialization and actually being able to provide that niche to specific clients. So in our discussion, Anton, I mentioned something about climate change, and you know, immediately instinctively think, what is that going to do with insurance? And I'd say everything. You know, the city of Cape Town at the moment, I mean, you guys went through quite a bit of a turbulent situation with the weather changes. That is a direct impact in terms of what insurance would look like. Your typical client that sits in a specific area of Cape Town in the last couple of years would not have experienced the kind of weather patterns that you're having. So we now know that certainty the weather will definitely change. We can see those things. However, it's the severity of the weather changes that is actually baffling the market. From the fires that went through in Knysna to what we're now going through with the rains and the wind, that also requires a different type of insurance product and a different type of insurance offering to our clients. KZN, I mean, I need to sort of speak largely about KZN, but I think I was saying to a colleague, you know, the only weather change they haven't gone through is a blizzard, and we touch wood, we don't have blizzard in KZN, but that also tells you in terms of what insurance needs are actually now, you know, emulating and becoming. And if you're not agile and being able to create that area, you know, that niche market and being able to diversify your products, you actually will find yourselves without actually able to provide your product. So for us, in a nutshell, I mean, if you look at our ability to be able to diversify and find insurance products that will actually meet our clients where they are. And at the moment, we do see that climate change is becoming an issue. I mean, we had a cyber scare last week as well. So our Supplier product is also kind of, playing itself in the market. So as you're able to diversify yourself as a business and you're able to look for opportunities, you do find that you meet your clients where they are. And I like what the opening speaker mentioned about the triple Ps, where you actually are able to meet your people, which is to us, our clients. We actually meet your clients where they are. The place, as we're seeing, we are across South Africa, and being able to see if your product actually meets those particular needs, and also just to look at what then you are able to offer as a product. So I think in a nutshell, for me, all of that is tied also in terms of compliance. So obviously, our motto is approaching risk with a purpose, that you don't necessarily, find yourself, as Khaled was saying, in every opportunity comes. However, you need to make sure that you're approaching that risk with a purpose, because you actually, are equipped with all your compliance requirements for that particular market. So that's sort of my response in a nutshell, Anton.
Awesome. Thank you, Noluthando. And I remember when we were chatting the other day, you mentioned it's really important to listen to your clients as well.
Correct.
And they will often kind of guide you in terms of new products or services that they want. You know, when we've developed a relationship of trust with the customer, quite often they will come to you and say, hey, Jenny, you know, I'm looking for such and such. Can you procure it for me? Or, hey, Khaled, you know, this is a need that I have. I know that you offer those services, but is there something else that you do as well? And then I suppose that often guides us in terms of product or service diversification, is that we're actually responding to a very clear and expressed need in the market and not just shooting from the hip. And maybe there's a nugget in that for the audience, is that if you are considering diversification or, you know, multiple revenue streams, make it an informed decision, not just, oh, there's an opportunity that I'm going to chase in the short term, or there's a tender that they're calling for, maybe I'll get that. But actually, you know what, people keep asking me if I can supply them with X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's something I need to look into. Would you agree on that?
Fully. Apologies, I seem to miss the mute button. Fully. I think it's also quite pertinent for business owners. As a procurement specialist myself, we also sort of tend to get into this very dangerous ground with SMMEs, where I almost feel like it's an abusive relationship really that we have, that you would expect you know, our business partners to be specialists and jack of all trades, and you know, without necessarily realizing the types of corners that we're actually pushing them. I think for me, I know it's quite difficult as a startup and as a business owner to be very picky about the services that you offer. But if I were to, you know, to sort of advise on that level, is that if there is an ability to actually start defining your niche products from the onset of your business, that's quite important. And not, you know, the old saying that says not everything that shimmers is gold. That's actually quite true, because also in the value and in terms of the value of the opportunities that come, we do understand that some of these things can actually be cash intensive as well. So that risk also that is carried by the business owner and necessarily not by the client, being myself, because all I'm asking is demanding of a specific service without necessarily realizing the risks that that come with a particular requirement. So I really would implore on our business partners that you evaluate your risk, you really intensively look in terms of the opportunity that comes and the risk that it comes with, and you make an informed decision when you're actually engaging in a business. Ultimately, this is your business. You know, what translates out of it is really what you determine. You choose what you actually, you are how you want to engage your business and what you engage your business in. And that opportunity for me is always in terms of how you then evaluating every opportunity that comes and the risk that comes with that opportunity.
Thanks, Noluthando. And yeah, you don't want to end up with boxes of packaging, plastic packets like Jenny, right? So
I will call on Jenny for those plastics.
I'm gonna jump to Santi now. And Santi, I'm gonna ask a slightly different question than the one that we had initially proposed. So I hope that's fine. I'm just going with the conversation here, and I think it's going in a nice direction. Does the ecosystem actually discourage focus in a way, in the sense that, and you're a supply chain expert, and that's why I'm posing this question at you. We often see businesses with "and projects" at the end of their name. So it'll be, you know, John Smith and projects. And we almost get encouraged to register in that fashion when we go to certain entities to have assistance with registering our businesses. And the kind of narrative that I've heard over the years is, you know, keep it open, you know, because you never know, maybe one day you can apply for a tender. And I mean, I work on national enterprise development programs with Fatola, and we often see people who apply to our program that there is no focus. They're supplying horticultural services to local government. They're supplying education solutions, they're supplying stationery, and they've got a butchery and there's all these diversified sort of concepts that don't really have any synergy. There's no golden thread running through them all. So, you know, in Bright Insurance's case, everything they do is insurance. So whether they specialize in 5 or 6 different areas, there's still a golden thread that runs through it. In Jenny's case, it's all about procuring goods that are needed, and there's a golden thread there with an increased focus in the medical space. How does a business navigate that? Because obviously survival is paramount, and if I was in the position of many of those entrepreneurs, I would apply for every tender that was going. But what is the danger of that? You know, now one day you win a tender to supply stationery. The next day you win a tender to supply a school feeding scheme, for argument's sake. Can it be navigated? Is it a model that entrepreneurs should be considering, or is it something perhaps that rather, you know, we focus and we specialize?
Yeah, thanks. That's a very interesting question, and the answer is as diverse as the question is, and as diverse as the whole topic is, right? So it's interesting that Jenny and I are on the panel together today, because Jenny and I have done business with each other over the years, albeit indirectly. And I actually think Jenny's business is a brilliant case study of exactly the situation, the question that you're posing. So Jenny, I hope you don't mind me kind of referring to you, but maybe using you as an example of a business that has gone through a journey as much as what Anton is describing now. So firstly, from a public sector supply chain management perspective, one of the biggest challenges that small businesses are going to be facing is exactly the situation you describe, Anton, where you have to register on a government supplier database in order to be able to be considered for a tender, either to receive the invitation for a request for quotation, or to be notified that a tender is coming up, or even just to satisfy the registration requirements so that you can submit a bid, right? So you have to be registered on a database. The first pitfall that we as supply chain officials see for small businesses is that the business registers itself for every category under the sun, rather than that focus that you're describing. And again, as you say, the rationale for that is very sound. I would rather have a huge range of opportunity and then decide for myself which opportunity I'm going to vie for, rather than narrow myself. But the problem, and it's heartbreaking to see it happen because it happens every single day, is that small businesses inherently don't have the admin resource to be able to filter through those thousands of events. And I mean, we know that government is a huge source of revenue for small businesses, but I don't think many small businesses actually understand how many transactions we're talking about. I mean, it's in the dozens and dozens and dozens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands every year. And I'm never mind Western Cape. I just think nationally, if you expand your focus, it's almost inevitable that a small business is going to become overwhelmed by the volume of opportunities that present themselves if they're registered for multiple categories. So yes, it's definitely a great opportunity to give you insight to what the market is asking for, and to determine for yourself whether you are interested, or, you know, you want to be a horticulturalist, as Ali described. But I believe that certainly in the early days, it is almost going to be to the business's detriment, because you're going to spend so much time filtering through opportunities, and you're actually going to lose your ability to then secure the stock that you need to be able to supply, because you've spent so much time figuring out which tenders you want to respond to, number one. And number two, you've got such a short turnaround time. I mean, as a buyer, a 72-hour turnaround time for a request for quotation sounds like a long time, because we often need stock quickly. But as a small business owner, where you have to go and source that product, if you've spent 2 days filtering through to figure out which one you're going to quote for, and you haven't determined your source of supply yet, it's definitely going to be disadvantageous. The other thing that I think is very important to note, so I've described the very beginning of the process, just being able to submit a quotation. But it's the end of the process that we often see people kind of tripping over their own feet. And that is that you've secured the tender. Now you've gone through the whole process and you've competed and you've done everything that's necessary and you've secured the tender, but you're forgetting the high standards against which you're going to be measured. If you're late with your delivery and you don't communicate why you're running late with the delivery, and you're not just running this one tender, but you're running 7 other tenders across multiple areas of business, and you're juggling all these balls, and you're maintaining a supply chain of your own, and you drop the ball with one of them, it could lead you to missing out on all future business opportunities because you get that black mark against your name on a database. And then you've lost out for what may actually have been no fault of your own. So again, your point about textbooks versus a butchery versus stationery, it's again, when your admin resource is very limited, particularly if you're doing business with bigger corporates or with government and their expectations are very, very strict or very high, you may end up disadvantaging yourself by playing in too many places at the same time. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really good answer. I'm going to maybe just ask one more question of you. So what is, if the converse is true, so now our business focuses just on one area, and maybe they're supplying the city, or they're supplying local government, or they're supplying a corporate, for argument's sake, and they're very niche and they're very specialized. It's kind of all your eggs are then in one basket. How do you navigate that? Because, if we just think back to COVID, as I mentioned at the outset, obviously the businesses that were very, very specialized and focused in a particular space, some were able to thrive. If you were a textile manufacturer and suddenly you got orders for masks that you just couldn't even keep up with, I know many people who are living in Mauritius now because of all the masks that they were able to procure and make and sell. How does one mitigate that risk where it is potentially very niche, very focused, and now you've got all your eggs in one basket, and something can happen, something can change. The procurement manager can change or move on, or the logistical requirements can increase, or the governance requirements can increase, and suddenly you're on the back foot. What would you suggest to an entrepreneur who is quite narrow in their focus currently?
You're putting me on the spot today, Anton.
Sorry, Santi.
No, so look, I think the thing about supply chains for me is we talk about these concepts as if we're talking about machines, because obviously that's where the literature about supply chain management emanates from. It's about manufacturing in the third industrial revolution. But actually, supply chains are people. It's all about people. And if you're not investing in your network, whether that is your advisory network or your commercial network or your support network, in my opinion, because your margin is so small, because your admin resource is so small, the biggest asset you have in your small business is yourself and the network around you. And I think, Jenny, again, in the years of us having done business together, I think that was one of the things that really was to your advantage. You have a fantastic network of suppliers and of businesses, customers that you've been dealing with. And I think investing in that network and maintaining it allows you to not only be able to monitor trends outside of a competitive environment, by having conversations like, what are you guys seeing? Are you also experiencing this challenge with this system where I can't submit my quotation? Have you noticed that there's some other arbitrary compliance requirement coming through in request for quotation, that kind of thing? So, I very recently met a gentleman called Dr. Willie Cellier, who's the chairperson of AHI, what I think it's the Afrikaanse Handelsinstituut, but they're now the sort of overarching business chamber umbrella organization for the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and Northern Cape. And I was absolutely fascinated to see the level of support that was provided by this particular organization as an example of a business chamber and affiliate network to SMMEs, and how they they enable business growth through networking. And because I'm on the other side of the fence, because I'm on the buying side, it didn't occur to me until that moment the incredible strength that sits within those business chamber networks. As a simple opportunity for business owners to share their experiences and learn from each other. The other thing I would say that I think is massively important to emphasize at this point, again, SMMEs are often disadvantaged because they're not able to access the high investment, high cost technologies. They're not necessarily able to invest in a SAP or an Oracle kind of an ERP system. But there are so many low cost technologies out there that can be leveraged, that can automate or assess through, things like generative AI, those trends that are coming through. So I want to use a very specific example. And I see Jenny nodding, which is great. If, for example, you were to receive all those requests for quotation into your mailbox, and you were able to write a simple program that, and I say simple program, please don't misunderstand me, I know it's not simple, but you were able to articulate that into an Excel spreadsheet that an AI bot could analyze for you and say, 60% of these requests for quotation relate to medical consumables, Jenny. That is a relatively simple thing that you could do once a week. So there are simple, low-cost technological advances that I think now are much more readily available in the market than they would have been 15 or 20 years ago, that can enable small businesses to monitor trends within their own organizations without necessarily even going into that networking space that I was discussing earlier. Thanks.
Thanks, Santi. Great answer and well done. I did put you on the spot. So neither of those questions were scripted. So really, really useful input there. I see Halet's got his hand up. Did you want to add something there, Halet?
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear to participants that are here. This is made go to limit your categories when you're registering as a vendor. So if you register with the city, you can only select 5 categories. You can't. And the reason for that is because, there were these guys, they called them tenderpreneurs. They just do tenders. They don't have businesses. They're in construction, but they cook not too bad. You understand? And it's just a lot of work and administration for the city. So now you can only select 5 categories. You can do construction. You can supply bricks as well. You can change the categories, but you can only select 5 categories.
Awesome. That's very useful. Thanks. Jenny, you can quickly also add your thoughts there, and then
I just want to say, that's the amount of opportunities created a pain to me, and a pain normally makes me think about something. So I came up with a strategy of a work from home opportunity. So I have now employed people which are trained up and they work from home. So they focus on certain categories, they fall under the company's umbrella, and they earn a basic and a nice part commission. So that was one of our ways of creating employment, because once they're up and running, they can create more employment, and so we can go on. So thank you.
And also taking advantage of opportunity without necessarily having to really grow your team and take on significant overhead, etc. That's a great suggestion. Thank you. I'm going to ask Bernie a question now. Bernie, so I mentioned earlier that Bernie is the founder and CEO of Reality Learning SA, and they are a training and HR consulting company, but they've got quite a niche focus on particularly occupational health and safety training and compliance, which we know is something that a lot of companies do struggle with and need support with. And my question to Bernie would be, you quite narrow and niche and focused in terms of the training and the support in the area that you play in. And how did that narrowing of focus help the business in terms of growth, in terms of expertise, and maybe carving a niche and positioning yourself as a real, organization of authority in the space?
Oh, let me unmute myself first. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. So I think just a little bit of a backstory will help. So in my early days of running my training business, I fell into that trap, or jail of all trades. We offered a wide variety of training services, and we wanted to be everything to everybody. And I think when you start out, you tend to do that because you kind of wanting to find your space. But I think what that did for our business is it really stretched our resources really, really thin. And it made it challenging to build a solid reputation, in any one area because you were touching on so many different things. And you know what? I've continued to do this for a long time. But then COVID happened. And COVID was great for me. It was bad, but it was good because it forced me to rethink my business. So for us, I think focusing on a single area of specialty, which is compliance and legislative training, has been absolutely beneficial. And you wanting to know, so how does this strategy benefit our business? I just believe that I think that now that we're focusing on one area that we are specializing in, we're learning how to develop our expertise. We're also learning how to work with specialists in the industry so that when we develop our learning materials, that we know we are putting good, well-researched learning materials out into the market and we're doing the right thing. The other thing about this benefit is it helps us to rebrand our business. So instead of having all these different types of training, we narrowed it down. We specialize in this one particular area of which is training. The other thing on that side is I think that it's really helped with our brand identity. So the customers now associate our business with a specific area of excellence. So they know that this is what reality learning does. And it also builds trust, I think, in the service and in the product. So that just some of the reasons why we also narrowed. But I think the one big thing for me is that when you're playing across all those areas, when you do streamline it, it does actually help with your operational processes. So we've actually been able to streamline things like our advertising and our marketing. We've actually we've got continuous improvement when we work with our facilitators because it's also understanding your clients' pain points. So if you understand your clients' pain points, you understand their business. We then, in the occupational health and safety space, when we go out and train, we can speak and we can train directly to that client and to the needs that they have and the things that they want us to share inside of the training. So I think for us, what kind of narrowing it down has helped for us is it's giving us the opportunity. It's giving us the opportunity to establish a national footprint. We're not there yet, okay, but it gives us the opportunity to work. So it's a work in progress for us. So I do think for entrepreneurs, I know that we start out doing lots and lots of stuff, but I do think that, narrowing it down into one area does make a difference. This way, you can also see where your money and your resources are going. So Anton, I hope I've answered this, but really just in closing, focusing, I think, on one single area, it helped us as a business build stronger client connections because why? We understand the client's needs better. We can provide them, with valuable solutions, with better solutions, but in the same breath, that's also boosted our credibility. And I think that's crucial for any business in terms of the growth and success. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie. Great answer. For me, the key takeout there. So instead of just being another training company, you actually start to get recognized as the OHS experts and specialists in the space. Yeah.
Exactly. And I know we spoke about diversifying. So diversification can come later. And I think that's what I've learned about being all over the show. So narrowing it down to OHS training, we can see that the next step after this, once all of this is done and in place and working correctly, is, we can then move on to risk audits, site safety audits. We can look at how do we create safety files. So there's opportunity after.
So you diversify within the sector that you've chosen to specialize in. And that's also what Noluthando said, in terms of their journey. It was about listening to the clients because new opportunities will present themselves if you're good at what you do and you're focused. There's a question from the audience that I want to pose to the panel, and maybe you can just pop your hand up if you feel like you'd like to answer it. It's from Happy Baloyi, and the question is, diversification is a risk reduction strategy. If one portfolio fails, others will remain. Putting your eggs in one basket is dangerous. What is your take on this notion? Is there anyone who'd like to take a stab at that? Jenny?
Okay, so I go back and say, listen to the customer. So our clients ask us for something completely outside of our scope, which is vegetables. But they trusted us, they knew that we can deliver. So we said, fine, we know what we can do, and we've done it. So by the third time, I said, this is a mushmash. And I opened a new business focusing on fruit and veg and getting it certified and everything. So yes, you start off with the diversification, but don't let it become a mess in your business. Remove it and create a new stream of income with a separate management company, separate employees. So it doesn't mess up what you've got and your processes that you're running now. So yeah, so my answer is
right.
Start off, but only if the need is really there.
Thanks, Jenny. Santi, and if I can just ask you to be concise, because we are running out of time. We're already over time and everyone's still here, which is fantastic. But we are going to start wrapping up quite soon.
So I think my caution would be around compliance requirements. Again, I'm speaking from a public sector supply chain requirement perspective. Jenny mentioned needing to get her Supplier license, which is an incredibly tedious and time-consuming process. But the challenge with diversification, unless you understand that you're diversifying within a semi-homogeneous industry, the extent to which the compliance requirements are going to compete with each other, become too expensive and become too administratively draining is something that is going to be to your disadvantage. So, you know, if you're considering supplying stuff, things that sit in boxes on shelves, your compliance requirements are going to be more or less the same, right? A piece of stationery versus a book versus a garment, similar, not always the same, but similar. Whereas if you decide you're going to render pest control services and catering, your compliance requirements are so diverse, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So I would suggest that, yes, diversification is definitely a way of ensuring that you have continuity, that you have that you have multiple cash flows, but just be really careful about what you're letting yourself in for from a paperwork perspective. Thanks.
Awesome. Elisa, you wanted to add something?
Yes, thank you very much. My humble contribution to that discussion would be another dimension to look at this matter from would be to say, what is the cost of servicing each segment? Because there will be costs to servicing each of these segments. You know, I'm reminded of a game as a boy that I used to play. So if you put your hand out to the sun, you'll get some heat on your hand. But when you put a magnifying glass, then you focus the rays on your arm or your hand and it burns your hand or a piece of paper. So focus always brings benefits. Lastly, in a letter or book by Jim Collins, Good to Great, he makes a very interesting point as I wrap up around making decisions as business owners around what is it that you want to be best at? And you can't be the best in every segment. There's got to be a decision, a very pragmatic, a very sober decision that says, this is what I want to be best at the exclusion of others. Of course, it does take maturity, engagement with relevant stakeholders, but also, as my colleagues have rightfully said, engaging with your customers, looking at what it is that they are looking for, but of course, matching that against your key competencies. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Belisa. That's great. And there's another question from the audience. Is essentially, it's quite a long question, but if I can summarize, Cheslin Baikis asks, and he also addresses this, or he paraphrases something that Belisa said earlier. He said, what happens if you've got if your business is working well, your productivity is quite good, but where you're lacking is marketing. So this is maybe a more of a, if we look at from a marketing perspective and a brand positioning perspective, how does narrowing your focus support that journey in a business? Maybe I'll address this question at Halid, if I may, because from a business support perspective and a strategy and guidance perspective. So now I've got something that's quite compelling. It's working. I've been to Productivity SA, and Police and his team have helped me to be efficient and to produce at a good cost, and to have good economies of scale and good systems and processes. But I'm struggling to carve a niche and to actually become known as an expert in the space. What would your guidance be there?
Look, I would suggest if you have 20 different products, right, it makes it very difficult, because firstly, that keeps you very, very busy. And if you specialize in one area, build multiple streams of income, selling one product is a lot easier, because we actually diversify, by focusing on one product and having multiple streams of income. How you're selling it to different people, you're using your social media, you're forming partnerships, you're registering as vendors on corporates, you're registering with government. All of those different streams of income is very, very important when you're building and starting, because you're not relying on one income. For example, the whole of government is one stream. Word of mouth is one stream, right? There's a lot of work involved in marketing. And what happens is, having 20 products keeps you very busy, and it actually takes time away from the real marketing and building that actual brand, which a lot of people actually neglect, because it just keeps you, so busy, which is one of the, things. And when you look at how much time you actually have, and are you actually putting in, because government and all of those contracts, it keeps you very busy, but you're not always making money, and this is the challenge. We are in business to make money, not to be busy, and that is where focusing really comes into play, because the marketing is actually, it is a lot of work. And that is what lowers the risk, is having all those streams nicely built and nurtured. And it's only when you now more established that you actually realize how important nurturing those relationships is. And as a small business, you just don't have time for it because you're too busy, keeping the engine going. So yeah, definitely. There's definitely advantage in narrowing your products and having a more focused strategy on marketing and building those streams. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Halid. And I guess, the reality is, if you know who you're talking to, and you know who your target customer is, and who potentially offers you the most opportunity for success from a customer segment perspective, it's a lot easier to figure out which channels you should be using and how to engage with them than if, everyone is your customer. It's like, where do I start? And if we just look at the different social media platforms that so many of us use to market our businesses nowadays, it's a very different audience on LinkedIn versus Instagram, for example. But the question you have to ask yourself is, where is my customer? And then you can be a lot more targeted and focused. So we have to wrap up. There were a couple of other questions in the comments. They're coming through thick and fast, but unfortunately we are pretty much out of time. There was a request if we could share the email addresses of the panelists with the members or the audience. So I don't know, panelists, if you're comfortable with that, maybe share your contact details in case anyone wants to get in touch with you. And if I can just ask the organizers if they can take care of that. And then just to wrap up and conclude, I'm going to go around the room and just ask each of our panelists to give us one last passing thought on this topic of jack of all trades, master of none. If you could just give the audience, the businesses and the entrepreneurs in the audience, one pearl of wisdom from your own journey and what you've learned over the years, and what would that be? And if I can ask you to be concise, I'm going to start with you, Jenny.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to be as concise as I can be. I'm going to refer to the parable of sowing and reaping, which links to what Kavi says, begin with the end in mind. Know where you want to go and then plot your journey. That's the number one. Number two, I really have to say this. We need to empower ourselves. We cannot wait for handouts. We know about AI. 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day can give you so much. You can empower yourself so well. So we need to look after ourselves as well. Thank you.
And know where you're going, I think, if I could extrapolate, have a vision, understand what success looks like to you. So start with the end in mind, as you said. Thanks, Jenny. And Nolutanda?
Thanks, Anton. I think just for me, last parting shot would be, I could probably summarize what Jenny is saying in terms of just having what we call a big audacious head goals. Those sort of keep quite a lot of us awake at night, because you have your people, you've got your processes and the systems almost enticed to that one single particular focus area of your business. Whether that's a niche area that you've developed or created for yourself, or it's what you're targeting actually is the end goal of your business. That's quite important. I think everyone who's in a business, I mean, I work for corporate, the easy strategy that we have, either that's an annual one or every 2 to 3 years, but that's your big audacious head goal that is sort of everybody is working towards and pulling all the machines towards that big goal. That's important to have, because even when times are tough, we're all facing these uncharted waters, but everybody keeps reminding each other of that one audacious goal that we're all chasing, whether that becomes profitability, is around efficiencies, whatever the goal is for everyone. That's, I think for me, that's quite important as people, as business owners to have, because it keeps everybody focused in your business.
Awesome, thanks. I love that. Santi, your final thoughts?
I'm going to repeat my point from earlier. Your people are your biggest resource. You need to build your networks, collaborate, talk to each other, keep those lines of communication open, and utilize the personal networks that you have.
Love it. Thank you. Khaled?
I would say focus on the things that you're really, really good at. The things you're not very good at, get someone to do it. Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. That's the reason why God made accountants, because there are people out there who love numbers, right? Peliswa, your final suggestion or advice to the panel and to the audience?
More towards the business owners, Chairperson. So I've had very interesting discussions around my next question. I always ask SMMEs or business owners when we are sitting around the table conducting training or workshop, what is your value proposition? You'll be surprised how many of them have not actually clarified that to themselves, even if some of them have been in business for quite some time. What is the value that you bring to the table? How do you deliver that value? And who is it most valuable to? At what price? Number two, I defined productivity earlier on as output over input. Some homework, which I usually give to business owners, is to say, please go and look at your income and expenditure per month for the last 6 to 12 months. If the ratio is less than 1, that means you have made a loss. Find out what those reasons are, or the drivers of your lack of productivity or a ratio less than 1 are. And lastly, productivity improvement is a daily business. So what did you improve yesterday? Or rather, what are you improving today compared to your performance yesterday? And what will you be improving tomorrow on today's performance? Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the panel, and thank you to the organizers.
Thanks, Peliswa. I love that. That's actually kind of dovetails to the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen, to which I ascribe.
Precisely.
In fact, I have a tattoo on my arm that says Kaizen. And it's really about constant small improvements. It's about what can I do just a little bit better today from yesterday? Can I minimize my wastage just a tiny bit? Can I increase the speed of production just a little bit? And every day you try and build and improve and iterate. And soon you look back and you can't believe how far you've come. So I think that was wonderful advice. Thank you. And then last but not least, Bernadette, your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts. I have many, but I will just choose 2. So I think the one thing that stands out for me, just from an entrepreneurial perspective, is don't just go out there and sell. Go and understand what your client needs. Have the conversation. If you understand the pain points, you'll be able to deliver to that. And then the second thing for me is it's lonely out there, guys. It's lonely. You're sitting in your little office, you're doing your thing, and it's hard to bounce back from something when your feet have been knocked out under you. So you know what? There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be setbacks, but you have to build your resilience. In this game, you need to be resilient. You need to learn how to bounce back. So adapt your strategies, but stay committed to your long-term goals. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bernie. And thank you to all the panel. You guys were fantastic. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think there was a lot of value. I learned a lot. And I'm going to hand over to Debbie to close.
Thank you very much. What an amazing panel. Find your reactions at the bottom to our audience, and please give our panel a warm round of applause or a high five or a celebratory, because I think that was everything that as Smart Procurement and our partners we wanted to achieve. Thank you, thank you. It was literally a bit of a dream come true, this panel, and I think you just really brought it home from all perspectives of how we can take our businesses to the next level, but in a practical and innovative way. So thank you to our panelists.